Welcome to Allegedly Higher, where humor, insight, and passion collide with higher education. Hosted by Dr. Erin and Dr. Candice. Join them as they dive into headlines, interview leaders, and challenge norms. From dismantling systems to championing equity, this podcast is your go-to for transforming the ivory tower. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Allegedly Higher. I am Dr. Erin Wheeler, and introduce yourself.
And I am Dr. Candice Love Jackson.
This is our first episode, so bear with us. Technically, all episodes might be like this.
Because we like to have fun.
Yeah. So this is a podcast where we dissect issues in higher education through a human-centered lens, spiced up with some pop culture flair. Together, we are your guides through this maze of academia, administrivia, and all of the craziness of higher ed, right?
Yes, yes.
So this podcast, this is our first episode, so we're going to let you in on who we are, why we're doing this, and what you can look forward to in future episodes. And we're going to give you our information. Listen, if there's something that you want, we do want to build this for who we call higher education rebels. So please let us know what you would like to see and hear, and the issues and topics in which concern you or you think they're not talked about enough. So we've built this podcast to navigate the complexities of higher education. We'll do this through interviews. We'll explore the latest headlines, shaping higher ed, our culture, intersect with politics, because politics is everywhere. And then we'll talk about the other segments that you'll hear down the line. So whether you are higher ed professional, a grad student, a student, or simply passionate about reshaping education, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the community. This is a safe space for rebellion and revolutionizing higher ed. So thank you so much for joining, and I hope you hit subscribe on wherever you listen to podcasts, because we want this to go nationwide and actually globally, right?
Yes, definitely.
So let's hop into it. I like your tag. Tell me what this higher education fugitive is all about.
I always say I used to say I was reformed higher education administrator, but after I spent the majority of my career from the moment I got my PhD in higher ed administration, whether it was a department chair, director, moving on up the ladder. And so after a while, you say to yourself, what is the life this is? And so I ended up as a provost, vice president of academic affairs at a place, and then I was not. So I have not in the past 7 years been in higher ed administration, and so I'm a fugitive. But you're always connected because you know how things are supposed to go, and so since I haven't done it in so long, I consider myself a fugitive from higher ed administration, because I know what they're doing wrong, I know what they're doing right, and I just go teach my children.
Yeah. What do you teach your kids? What do you teach your kids?
I am a professor of English at an institution somewhere in the Deep South. You're gonna put it that way, because I don't want.
Yes, anything you say on here may be used against you
in several
higher education streets. So we do have to keep you anonymous, just in case we both may get back in higher ed, right?
Right. But
you put fugitive. Yeah, I'll talk about what my title is. But yeah, technically I'm a fugitive too.
Yes. So I think that you know, my brand of leadership just wasn't, and I think that's why this podcast was so important to me, because my brand of leadership was not accepted or appreciated until after I'm gone from a place, right? Because I try to lead with my 3 pillars of humanity, integrity, and if I weren't getting so old, I would kind of know what the third one was. But humility, that's my third one. Yeah. So that's why I'm a fugitive until somebody wants to, you know, bring me back, bring me out of the rain. So
yeah. Well, I am. That's a good one for the both of us, right?
Yeah.
It's a fugitive. Yeah. We ran. We'll tell you in a minute how we ended up here. But for me, my story started. I say I've been in higher ed since I went to college, because all of my work study jobs were in various offices. And let's see, I started out in multicultural. And I went to what was my next? I went to admissions. And then I ended up also being a supplement instructor. So I worked in academic support. I also ended up being a tutor too. And yeah, I think those are where I mostly did all my work, all 4 years of college. And then I went straight into my grad PhD program, which is science education. Worked as a grad assistant, so got a little bit of taste of that side. Still in admissions, but in the grad admission side,
right?
And teaching. Of course, I TA'd, and still continued to do academic support and tutoring, college coaching. That was my first business, and worked my first real job in which I had benefits full time. I was an academic consultant. I was a teaching learning consultant. I think that was my real title. But I worked heavily in academic support. But we were fighting. I worked at a PWI, a research one PWI. Well, we had to fight. We had to fight.
You had to fight every day. You had to fight every day.
We had to fight literally so they can give us the money to provide academic support like we needed to the 26,000 students. I think that was it. Yeah, that was where I cut my real professional teeth. And even in there, I served in different capacities and learned all about data retention, student success, and how to really tie it all together. And then we both moved out of the deep South, and we moved to the South-ish, to a state where they didn't know if they were Southern or East Coast or Midwest. I don't know what identity it had. And we met at this HBCU. And this is where our faith brought us together.
Yes, God.
About God. Yes. Continue that narrative.
Yeah, that was quite a trip. And I tell people all the time that my association and friendship with you was one of the true blessings of that experience. I learned a lot in that experience, but to be able, because now I try not to even fly over the airspace, like the vortex that is that space in the middle of America. I don't want to fly over. But so, and having worked closely and kind of learning, and learning new approaches, new ideas, and having those fresh perspectives, and finding someone who also leads with integrity and humility and humanity was such a blessing in a place that had no integrity or humility or humanity. That's the best way I can describe it in that way. And so, yes. And so now we're here.
Yeah. Well, let's dig a little bit more, because I think that pivotal time will probably explain why we did this podcast. So it was one. So moved to this place and started working at this institution. July 13th, I think, was my D-Day.
Mine was September 1st.
So I have been working a little bit. I came on board as assistant vice president of student support. First big girl job. I had been at the PWI for like 5 years, 3 degrees, and the ceiling was so low. We were actually in a basement, literally. So I can only go so far there. And so I just kind of waited it out till I got a phone call. Hey, would you like to move and accept this position? Yes, I did. And really excited. So I came on board, assistant vice president of academic support, really excited to put all of my leadership and teaching, learning, all of my academic support, but tying it into every piece of the university. And my charge was to improve retention, which was, I did, which is very low, and also impact graduation rate, which was very low. So when I met Dr. Jackson, she came on board as, and this is important details, you came on board as, I first met you in what role?
As chief of staff.
Chief of staff. What were you charged to do as chief of staff?
So I was supposed to be the number 2 person at the institution. I came in as chief of staff. I had applied for the vice presidency. And he gave it to somebody else and said, but I still want you. I got this position, chief of staff. Come on board. Let's do that. And charged also to work with academic affairs. We have to raise retention and graduation rates. That was sort of, the imperative. I was also over athletics in Title III. So that in itself was a full, like a full-time job, and to herd the cats in this point of transition. So I was supposed to help, herd the cats. And so that was my first position. Literally. That was my first position.
Yes. And we are these details matter in the grand scheme of things. Once we talk about the big bolder issues in higher education, and particularly HBCUs with PWIs are not immune from this kind of critique in our book, because I've seen it happen both places and felt it happen in both places and experienced it. So these details. So we this is still a month. We gonna give you a play-by-play. This is a month. We're gonna give you like a quarter every 3 months.
Right.
For the first 3 months or semester, you were chief of staff.
I was, yes, and moved and moved. Like started the day after Labor Day. It was September 1. By the end of the month, we had a SACS visit. We had a SACS visit. We had a classic that everybody was supposed to go to. And then we had a SACS visit and a SACS report to write. Like, so the first 3 months was all SACS. Yeah. All right. So, so that was very stressful, as well as, here you are making really, really good money. Let's be very clear. You're making really good money.
And so you have this very low cost of living.
Right. So you had this, wonderful, new salary. You had these wonderful new experiences, meeting new people, because it's always important, I thought, to kind of expand your horizons, and expanding your network in your job. So I don't, move around, you see, meet other people, see how other people do things. So meeting the dynamics of the personalities, new cabinet, SAC COC reports, staying up, trying to get things done for like 18-hour days, no cognitive rest at all. That was the first month.
Yeah. So
that was the first month. Yeah.
Our relationship began because it was just a whole lot of fires to put out. On the hierarchy, I probably should not have had as much interaction with you as I did. I was in academic affairs. You're in the president's office.
Yes.
I'm 3 levels down from 3 levels down from you.
Right.
And I should not have had, but I think the school was such in turmoil, and it was just like a twisted knot, which ironically, one of the games on my iPad that I'm addicted to is untwisting knots. This is my new 2-week addiction. So it was really like untwisting knots. Everything was tangled and wrapped around each other so heavily that I had to interface with you. And you were probably, like you said, the only person who had a very logical and let's get it done. Even though things were on fire, we could parcel out what needs to be done right now and not panic or not just freeze.
Even when it looks like I'm panicking, I'm really not. I have completely, I'm not. I think what people don't realize about HBCU inner workings is that if you work at an HBCU, you are familiar with everything. There are not enough people that they may have at a PWI to do like this is the one job that you do. So it at my previous institutions, when I've been in administration with a smaller HBCU, yes, I was on retention committee. I was on this committee. I was planning commencement. We were all having those conversations. So it's easy for me to kind of work academic support, work with student support services, and kind of figure out how do you get it done, because it has to be done. And there was no such thing as that's my job, that's your job. I don't do that. It's all hands on deck, because at the end of the day, it's about survival. And so you're trying to get to a baseline of survival so then you can think about thriving.
Yeah.
But if you're under the baseline of survival, what is it that you're going to do? And so that's where we were with a single digit 4-year graduation rate. That's where we were with a low 2-digit 6-year graduation rate. It was all hands on deck, and you had to be willing to put in the work. And I've never been that person to go, oh, well, she's an AVP. I don't really talk to the AVPs. Like, it's not, I was never going to do that. And then you have to find out, no matter who's in what role, who has good sense.
Yeah.
And who really wants to do the work. Like, you can complain about it all day, but when you got to get it done, you got to get it done.
Yeah.
So then we went in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go.
I neglected to mention that by the time you came on board, I was on my second supervisor, which meant second provost. This was a month in, right?
Right. So when I tell people that I was at this particular institution for 2 years and 4 days, I put all respect on those 4 days.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I had 3 presidents.
Yeah.
So when you have that kind of turnover, you don't have the stability. And it's all organic to even recruitment, because if a president or provost or director or an AVP talks to a student, talks to their families, and they're there in August and they're gone by May, parents are sending their children not just to an institution, but to the people at that institution. And so that kind of turnover affects your recruitment. It affects your retention, because things change. So and students need that stability at this last phase of their adolescence.
Yes.
They really do need that stability. So when they don't have it, it throws it all off kilter. And
And I think the smaller the institution, the greater that turnover feels.
Yes. So by the time I got confirmed, you had 2 provosts. You were on your second provost, but there were 3 CFOs in the book.
Yeah.
So one board meeting, they had 1 CFO confirmed. By the next board meeting, they had to confirm another one. By this one, they were confirming another.
And I can't even. We're not going to talk about how we refer to them because it's really by what they wore at the time that we met them. At all. I can't remember any names at all, which is unfortunate. We're laughing because at the time we had to keep from crying, but it was crazy. If you can think about CFOs and budgets and trying to get stuff done and trying to figure out how much money do I really have to do support and what grades are we on and what salaries do I have. And so that was off kilter for me. And even if we can go back, you talked about how you came from an HBCU. I got my 2 grad degrees from, I'll say that. That's not bad. Southern University. Yeah, from Southern University Baton Rouge. Best experience. I got my undergrad at a PWI. So I have varied amounts of worked and schooled at all kinds of institutions. But once I worked for R1 PWI, it was very siloed. I did my one job.
Right.
I sat on committees, but I only had to do one job. So when I came, I'm like, okay, let me stay in my place. Kind of like, let me stay in a child's place. Let me stay in my departmental place.
Right.
So much that I was just thrown off of like, all right, Dr. Wheeler, you want to, we got the SACS report to do. Excuse? Yes, I'm in academic affairs, but
yeah,
I didn't consider myself part of the academic affairs front line, as in the main office. I was like a subshoot of it, right?
Right.
Just come when y'all need to talk about the students. I was not expecting to be thrown into what I call the big people. Yeah, right. I actually didn't even want to be a part of it. Just lead me to let me be with my folks, my students, and my team. And I'm gonna let all y'all handle the stuff that people probably found most attractive, which that wasn't me. It's being at the meetings and being at the cabinet meetings and being at the board meetings. That's not the kind of stuff that I like to do for reasons, because I just feel like they're unproductive. So leave me out of this. Let me do my job. I didn't even consider myself I wasn't on the cabinet. I was not a provost. I was not associate provost. I'm a little assistant vice president.
That vice president part. You didn't get that part.
Assistant vice president, like
you at the big table.
No, put me at the kiddie table, much less I'll eat my plate outside.
But you had so many people at the big people table that didn't know what they were doing that
I got called to the table.
You got called to the table
all the time.
But I think what's an important lesson there is that being ready to be at the table. You were ready for the table. You just didn't want to be, right?
I didn't want to be, and I didn't think I was, but I had to get over that quickly. When I skipped out on a board meeting. Do you remember that, Jay? I skipped out on the first board meeting.
Yeah, because you didn't know you were supposed to be there.
No, like I go to LSU board meeting. I'm board meeting. Like what?
I know, but see, that's the difference. So the catering to and being in the mix of, at the board meeting and finding out everything, it's you hate to use the cliche dog and pony show, but it is. Because it was to show that we support the efforts and that we're all working. And if there are any questions, well, I got in trouble at my first board meeting too. So, because I called somebody up to answer a question, and I was like, okay, well, look, I just got here, so come get this one. And now you don't call anybody. You're absolutely right, sir. But I was called. I was called to sub in for somebody.
right? I did my report. I did
Yeah.
all the background work. I stayed up, made sure my report even helped edit academic affairs sections.
Mm.
Cool, I'm done. Y'all let me know when the board meeting over if I need to hit. But I was not at my desk, so therefore I didn't answer my desk phone.
Uh-huh.
I was talking with my staff. By the time I sat down, the head of security was opening my door, and at the same time, I see a missed call from the president's office, and I go, "Oh." And as soon as the head of security came in, I just picked up my bag, got my coat. I'm coming.
Yeah. I mean,
coming.
it there was a sort of the walking on eggshells, I think, for me. I mean, people were doing the best they could. And sometimes the best doesn't serve the need, but it was and sometimes some people weren't. But those of us who were new, we were really trying to do the best we could.
Yeah.
But some of the directives weren't outlined and communicated that you were supposed to be at the board meeting the entire time. Or because once you do your report, you gotta let's clear the room and be done. But that just wasn't the case at all.
This job forced me to grow up real fast as a leader, as an executive leader, because I wasn't ready to play ball. I actually said I never wanted an administrative position at all. That was not my career path. I wanted to teach and become tenure faculty. I was not even on the path to that.
That was your path, but God had totally different ideas about what you needed to be doing. And so I think that's where we are. It's kind of like, okay, wait a minute. I'm not from here, but I'm trying to make this work. And we were trying to lean in, so to speak, right, and make this work as best we could, and did good work. But there had to be changes. There had to be new mindsets that some people just weren't ready for.
Yes.
And so when you have good administrators or good faculty or good staff people who have different mindsets or trying to transform a place, no matter if that's an institution of higher learning anywhere. For me, it's that if they're not willing to change the mindset, it's not going to change. And you can't force it down their throat, but you have to kind of that's the best way to put it, like garner support. They have to respect you. They have to trust you. That even if the changes feel different or awkward at first, that I trust this person enough to know that they're doing this in the best interest. So, like you were over academic student support. Your acronym was what? Nobody caught that.
I did.
You did. And so we changed it as soon as we could. But just the idea that nobody saw that. No, because people get mired down in the day-to-day. They get mired down in the survival.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are, these transients coming in from day one, trying to change, and they had already, by the time I got there, you all had kind of already, how shall I put this?
A month felt like a year.
Yeah. It was like summer school on steroids.
Yes. So
yeah.
So that was fall.
That was fall.
That was pretty much fall.
Yeah.
There was turmoil and turnover in academic affairs somewhere. Yes. You became chief of staff, but you also became my mediator. Like you literally was like, you go over there, you go over there. Hey, Mr. President, right. Your exact words were, I'm trying to
stop mutiny. They refuse. They are refusing to report. I am trying to stop a mutiny. And if you don't do something, there's going to be a problem.
So fast forward, and this is this is funny, but not funny because it was traumatic. We can replay these experiences so we know
Right.
different things. Fast forward to spring, mid-spring, right? So a few months later, Prince passed away in this board meeting that I showed up to, that I knew to show up to. We were given a board report. At the same time, I think you had to I don't know if I dug my fingers into your thighs, so I wouldn't say nothing, or vice versa. I think at this particular board meeting, I probably went at it with the board member real hard, outside of my character. I had got permission from the man, and then everybody started looking at their phones and gasping in silence, which is one of the. I love this. This is one of my favorite memories of working at an HBCU. I'll juxtapose that to the day when Prince died. I was in a white research lab. The day Whitney died, I was only Black in a white office. And then the day Prince died, totally different. A hush came over the room in the official board meeting. We adjourned, and everybody had a small repast out in the hall for Prince.
Because we couldn't believe it.
We couldn't believe it. So
and that
on the day Prince passed away, you became my real supervisor.
Yeah. So, and again, I have when people have to be released to their destiny, I still think that you can do that with fidelity and humanity, right?
Yeah.
So it was not that part. It was like the longest day ever, because I'm still reeling from Prince dying, getting that notification. And here's the thing. I think as a Prince fan, talking about long term, it was almost like I expected a call personally from Paisley Park. Like, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, for me, who am I to get a notification? Like, I was supposed to be first in line to find out.
On the street.
Right. I'm not supposed to hit this on the street, right? So we're all about to go to lunch, and I get a call that says, report at 1:00, and it's like 12:45. And I was like, God, I was, on my way to lunch, because getting ready for board meetings were stressful. Like, we were doing all night sessions. I have the pictures to prove it. We were up all night trying to get it ready. And then you're worried because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, they don't read.
No. Boards do not read your board books, people. Just really FYI. Or they skim it and they pick up what number they look, and then they read that sentence and they don't put it in context. And then you have to explain it. So
I didn't get it from what a day at you about something what the street said and neglect to read.
Oh my God.
That's another conversation, another episode on board governance.
So you want, the one thing that everybody wants after a board meeting is lunch and a drink. And that's where we would go. And then on top of Prince dying that day, I definitely was about to go eat really, really good comfort food. And then I was going to have somebody's beverage, right? That didn't happen. So that was the day I also became your immediate supervisor.
Yeah, provost.
Well, he didn't believe in the title provost yet. So I was just the vice president. I was vice president for academic affairs.
True.
And that was in April. And then in May, I was provost.
Yeah. And I was assistant provost, and I didn't realize the weight of that until I told my mentor, and he was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Should I be saying 'oh' too?" He's like,
Well, because
I
then
thought it was just a title change. I mean, I have been doing the work of an assistant,
mm-hmm,
but I wasn't, putting
right.
doing the math.
Well, the president resigned, and then we had I was acting president for, so again, I've gone from chief of staff to now vice president for academic affairs. Excuse me, to provost, vice president for academic affairs, to acting president. Longest week of my life.
This is all am I counting right? 9 months?
Yes.
School year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every
And
quarter.
one year. So when I switched over to vice president, I just took Title III in athletics with me. So in the meantime, because there was so much turmoil, we actually had 3 outside consultants come that same year as well. So we were doing that. And so instead of replacing the chief of staff position, what happened was that I rolled my duties as chief of staff into my vice presidency for academic affairs, and then the provost vice president thing. That's
I forgot about that.
So at any given time,
yeah,
I had 27 direct reports.
Yeah, I probably had that many as well, because in between,
but at least yours
somewhere in between the fall, my first fall.
Yeah.
5 months after me getting there, consultant came, enrollment management consultant, and I was summoned to the big house. And the report was not gently shoved.
Handle it.
No, it was point. Read. It was a shove, and like, read this right here. And we always had reading lessons. I only would read,
the reading lessons, and to this day, I will not accept Courier New Font from my students or Arial.
Yeah. So
I would never accept Arial again.
We would read it out loud, which is, a helpful technique so you can get it. But it was read, it seems as though all of our recommendations lie in, so I'm paraphrasing, that Dr. Wheeler knows what she's doing and can handle enrollment management. And in my mind, I'm like,
this is not what I signed up for. No.
Not.
Yes.
So that day you was released from enrollment management, because that was, you forgot that you had that too.
I had that too?
Yeah, because enrollment management didn't quite pan out. And so I, along with Trio, yeah.
Wait, we forgot one of the most important days, the reason I was truly released from enrollment management task force meetings. The hair appointment day.
Yeah.
Should we save that for another time? I'm gonna give y'all a teaser. Just
Let's
know.
She was very happy to be released from yet another meeting on her calendar and responsibilities, which was now in my court. We were all happy for you, and we knew that the release of you from these meetings meant you had ample opportunity to go get your hair done.
Did. Perm. Yes, yes, all of the things. And it had been so long that I was just, that day, I was Norbit on looking for Tuesday, right? I was like, oh, relaxer. Today is the relaxer. Like, that's what it was. And then
you was halfway down the road, 15 minutes into your 30-minute drive, to an appointment that had been specially made for you.
For me.
Because you had to act as mediator in between the president
and the then vice president.
Yeah. as chief of staff, and
So
you
we
were
have
so
I was angry. I was going to lose. That was the final straw for me, right? It had been since the previous year because we worked constantly. And then, you were almost afraid to leave because you had a 5:30 meeting, and my stylist last appointment was 6, and I'm booking it like my car was doing 90, right? Trying to get there, and I'm on my way there, and I have to cancel. It was a whole thing. So if you set the scene that in this area it was still cold, and here I am in my full bougie,
for
with my new jacket on,
yeah,
and my Louis Vuitton in the crook of my arm,
yes,
and all I can hear in that moment, I got a call to come back. I canceled the appointment. I called my father. Now my husband was at work.
wrong
I called
person
my father. Wrong person to call, because I told him, I said, this is it. And all I kind of remember was the clickety clack of my boots against the concrete. Because I had gone, and then so I guess from the perspective of, so you were still sitting at the table, I burst into the conference room, and then what happened?
So this is a very long presidential conference table. I'm sitting at the very opposite end, looking the president straight in his face. 2 other ladies are on opposite sides. I hear Candice come from behind me. I see her Louis Vuitton thump on the table on the side of me. And for this to be done, people had to be out of the mind, because the president you don't do this kind of stuff with him.
And had never done anything like
your
this.
mama say, you better not dot this dough. You shouldn't dot the dough if you're not in the meeting. You got to not light. You better tell the assistant to not lightly and ask if it's okay. But no, you heard door open, you back. We like, why is you back? Because you're supposed to be gone. And all I saw was this. I need to see you for a minute. Like it was a point, like, get up. I need to see you in your office. And we still ain't breathing from that moment, because we like, oh, this is a fireable offense.
I knew that day.
The last day.
I knew that, and I was willing to do that. That day I had. There's a moment that you can push your staff and your faculty and anybody. You can push anybody to that. That was the last button on Gabriel's coat. That was it. And it really wasn't.
No, ironically, I think that was the day that you gained respect, but that's not how
it was. It was very toxic. No, and it was something that didn't require me coming back, but the fear. It was. Listen, we don't have the emotional bandwidth to go all the way back. But what was funny about it was I didn't care at that point. I had never done anything like that in my career that I remembered at the time. But I was one of those that would fight for my kids as a faculty member, as a, mid-level. And so they knew that. Don't play with Dr. Jackson's kids. Don't play with her children. She will fight until there's blood on the floor. In this space, I had so much responsibility, and all I needed was this one thing.
Yeah.
I just needed this one moment to refresh and reset. And because I was unable to get that when I needed it the most, I was willing to put it all on the line.
Yeah. I mean, your humanity brought you back. Yeah. Your humanity brought you back, because you easily could have called on your way, argued through the speakerphone of your car, continued the conversation before you got into the salon, and left her to deal with it on her own, because it wasn't like explain your part online, but you didn't have to come in. it easily could have been where she had to like defend herself. She had to like stand up and defend, but she was so overwhelmed that she couldn't articulate the reasoning, which we'll talk when we talk about leadership in toxic environments in higher education.
Yeah.
We really,
So that's a pivotal moment. That's a pivotal moment for me. And then there's something else that happened. We'll talk about that, probably later on down the line. But at a moment where I had decided, as I remember quickly clanking my way to the elevator, waiting and being so livid, I was right. I made the decision. I followed the parameters. I did it. And I needed that. I needed that moment to step away. Because we were working 18-hour days. We go get something to eat and then still go back up there. Or we'd have it brought in. And I needed that moment. I had even requested to have off hours, after hours, because if he called a meeting at 5:00, I knew I couldn't go. If he called a meeting at 5:30, I knew I couldn't go. So, and I said to him before I made the appointment, "You're married to a Black woman. I gotta go. If I don't do that, I gotta go. I need this." And the thought that I wasn't going to be able to get that was just like, that was it.
Yeah. But that was the first time he looked he looked at me. The look was like, what? I was like, I don't know. I'm sitting here with you. I don't know what she wants. Like, she called me.
Yeah, people. I mean, I've never seen somebody go, slack like, because I wasn't supposed to be there. And everybody knew it. I mean, I'm telling you, y'all, I was Norbit waiting on Tuesday. I was.
The whole cabinet knew Candice had to go get her hair done. And it's been months, and she's a once a monther, and it's been 3 or 4 months, and she's like, scratching, like she doing her best. She needs to go. The whole school, the whole cabinet knew she needed to go.
I didn't, and it was really a mental health thing for me.
Yeah,
it really was. And you're away from your family. You are trying to lean in. You don't. It's not going the way you thought it would go. Things are just, you're questioning everything. I needed those 2 hours. I needed that more than anything in the world. And
now you gotta change your schedule to put out yet another fire that was not your responsibility.
I mean, I was, and the fact my husband was working, and so I had to call my daddy. That was just like that Erin always says, please don't call him, because he is not going to be helpful or talk me off a ledge or anything. He was going to be like, go to Walmart, because I think one day I was told it was a final nail, and my daddy said, okay, well, go to Walmart and go buy you a pack of nails. They about $1.37, and go throw them at it. So here your damn nails. So I wasn't getting any kind of help in that way. So it's the worst person for me to call and say that this is it. I'm out. He's gonna fire me today, but I'm gonna say what I need to say.
Yeah. So you didn't get fired. You actually
I did not.
You actually
promoted. Promoted.
You actually had like a white male privilege in that moment, and you got promoted to provost, the job you had originally applied for. So yeah, that 2.5 years, we can probably sum up the last year.
Yeah.
So we were
2 years and 4 days. You were there 2.5.
So the next year and 4 days, we were like Harry Potter. We did so much magic together. We had a president who understood student success, and so he felt confident that I had what it took. We moved things, policies together. We were like a well-oiled machine. I knew to get FaceTime with you, it was dinner. Like that's when we had our debrief meetings. That was how I knew how to manage up. We got so much stuff done to the point where retention rose. I always get my numbers mixed up from 44 to 68.
Yes.
Because of that, with the first, 3 cohorts, 15, 16, and 17, and probably 18 got a little taste of what we had set in place. 4-year graduation went up to this probably highest it's ever been. Every week, unless they make some changes. Right. And the 6-year graduation rate, phenomenal, unheard of. 20 points? I can't remember. It's like 20,
so the graduation rate that institution has is ours.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to talk about in terms of the college scorecard later on, is that it looks like it's with the president that the numbers come out for, but there's nothing to notate this is who this cohort started with. And these are the measures in place. And so there's some failures there. And I get the whole premise behind that scorecard, but it doesn't allot for a lot of variables and things that I think are important. But yeah, we did everything that President One wanted and had the vision for.
Yeah, he had the heart for it. It was just he was dealing with some other things. Like it was really his leadership style, but he had the heart for it. And I'll take that any day. Yeah. We worked well together. Maybe everybody was like, because we were both Gemini. We were both Geminis. And although I may seem like a lamb, but he respected me, although I didn't see that reciprocate with all the other people around me, which is hard to see. But he was the one who did give me a boost of confidence and said, hey, you know what you're doing, just do it. And he actually, unknowingly or not, we say it's a safe space for rebellious higher leaders. He pushed me toward that side, and he was like, you keep following protocol, you're going to lose your job. How does that work? He was like, if you know you can't get anything through your immediate supervisor, you know you need to get the job done. You need to find a way to do it. So at some point, I started reporting directly to him and being in the cabinet. So that was not at all what I thought I was going to end up with when I signed on the dotted line. But I would rather take a leader who has the heart for students. Like students loved him. It was all the stuff that was going on in leadership, but I would take that heart any day. But I think he had so much on the line. He was trying to prove in his career coming back that it was just a lot of pressure. But once we cleared out the stuff, we realized there was board stuff going on that
we weren't privy to.
That we kept seeing, and we'll talk about that in an episode on board governance. But we had immense respect for that. We did, we knew what he was trying to do.
Right.
We got president number 2. We did great work. They did a search.
We did great work because we were allowed to do it.
We were left that we needed to.
Yeah. We were left alone.
Yeah. It was macro managed, which what we needed. So president number 3, who is we had acting interim president on our year 2. And then, the third president came in May. We're back at May, back at another president. And that's the wrap for me. By October, me and my whole staff was gone. Plan kept.
I was gone on September 5th.
Yes. So Dr. Candice left before me. She gracefully bowed out. I know you're bringing in another provost. Do what you do. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I was gone by October 3rd, as well as all of my other academic support staff. All politics, no numbers. So, I was tired by that. I didn't want to stay any. I was tired of fighting with faculty. I was tired of fighting, just tired of fighting. I'm like, if you want to let me go, let me go. But I didn't want all my other people to be let go because we're doing good work as a team. And the way I planned it, it was like, I'm not going to be here forever. And I wanted somebody homegrown to take what we did. Plans were written. They knew exactly what needed to be done, which is why the other cohorts after them were pretty consistent in terms of that.
Right.
And they used all of my plan, but didn't want me because of politics and everything. You know, new administration, bringing your own people, all of this stuff. It was a lot of underhanded stuff that had nothing to do with my performance, the students' performance, anything. It was not a meritocracy,
right?
At all. It was very much subjective and political, which hurts a lot of institutions, and leads to a lot of turnover, burnout, and this upheaval that we're seeing constantly in higher education, which hurts our students the most.
And I think the fact that I bowed out and said, we've gotten you to this point. I know you're going to bring in your own people. I'll go back into the classroom. I'm going to go home. I'll do it online. I'll teach online. And then as I look for another position. And I really believe because I did that without allowing someone the benefit of releasing me, then they had to do it another way.
Yeah.
And so, but here's the thing, after that, I will tell you this. I learned that, I had become very close in that walk. We had a really hard, we can laugh about it now with the distance, the time. It's not as triggering, but I will never not trust God again.
Yeah.
And so I should, whereas, we dug in, we have the experience, we can do that. We know what it takes to increase and to do all of those things, the default rate, the retention rate increase, all of those things, increasing the intellect, everything that we did in that short amount of time. Because once I said, I will not do this, I'm gone. And God will provide. And I left it up.
Yeah.
And
it was more about mental stuff, like,
yeah.
And leading back up to this, while we did this podcast,
yes,
for the next, 2.5 years after that. So it was almost the same amount of time we were there that we needed. We called it our exploring and consulting phase. I went back home to my parents, rented out my house.
Yeah.
Because I could not even think about paying bills, being responsible. I just needed a life break. And I couldn't tell people that. Right. If you follow my other podcast, Gracefully Refueling Station, I talk about burnout, but it was literally from all the places that I had worked, not just that one, but that was the lighter fluid. Right. I was just tired. I couldn't tell people I need a life break because that sounds suicidal. I just didn't want to be responsible anymore. I needed out. I didn't even know what out was. But be careful what you pray for, because I got it.
Right. Well, I had a year. I explored, we explored, you apply, but I also knew, I think, that I didn't want to move as far. And I just kind of waited. And there was a couple of opportunities that I thought I was going to be good for. I didn't get. Okay. I did some writing, non-academic. I worked with a a classmate of mine on some film, so I do that now. I sort of allowed myself the time to breathe and explore because I had been working up until 2017. I had worked since I was 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I do tell people that if you have the opportunity to take a year off for whatever reason, mid-level in your career, it gives you a hard reset. It gives you some time because we're working. But that was the first time I had never had a job. And I tell people, I have my little one-liners, right? And I tell them myself, baby, I went from 6 figures to unemployment, but I never missed a hair appointment again.
Never. Or massage.
Or never. And it was something that we needed because we could celebrate those wins, but it took about 2.5, maybe 3 years to fully realize that, you're forgetting people, you're forgetting names. And so that's mercy, because as long as you can hold on to it, that you can't get past it. And so we were able, I think, even as we commiserated and laughed, we started to learn how to laugh about what happened and what we learned along the way. I mean, we really did the work to get past it, because you didn't want to go into another institution with the same trauma, because I'm a fugitive from that trauma. I don't do trauma. I don't do it as much as I will mentor young administrators in the lessons that I wish someone had told me early in my career about sacred spaces and cognitive rest and keeping that up. But I learned in those 2 years and 4 days. And so now I wish somebody, yes, and she's smiling because that's her phrase. And that's what I learned from her. And I tell people, cognitive rest. Yes. Sometimes it comes at the most inopportune times. We'll tell y'all about that later in another episode. But yeah, so.
But that brings us to why we created this. So in that 2.5 years, so the connection we had was not about the place where we worked, and going back home to find some stylists. We were both not necessarily from the same place. My sister lived where you were. So if I can get to my sister, we both can get there. I can get back. It's the 30-minute drive to my parents.
Yes.
And so we had long rides, 9-hour rides back home during breaks.
Yeah.
We wanted to get home. And so we shared that connection that we were both out of place, but we both had a central place to call home.
Yeah.
And even in that 2.5 years, of course, I go visit my sister. We would have our lunch dates. You became family. My parents were like, oh, you travel home with Dr. Jackson, you good. So, but even our conversations, I had a period of time where I was like, I don't even want to work at higher ed. I did have offers, but I was just very careful not to jump back in to the same thing or the same type of experience. I was very careful, which precluded me from ever taking a job in a very traditional higher ed setting.
Right.
I was the executive director of a nonprofit. It was a college coaching, still aimed at the issues of my heart, but I was outside the fray, which gave me four great years, great perspectives. But we still had these conversations at least once a week, twice a week, sometimes hour long. And as much as we both tried to get away from higher ed and hide, all of the things, all of the trends, did you see this? They just hired this man over here. He gone already. You see who left this place? Did you see this article? Like, it was still we could see the trends and like we've never seen them before. Our eyes were totally open. And it began to be, this is a higher ed problem. It's been, but we knew that. But now we can see it. We stepped away and we have different lenses now. And so our conversations would go, did you see this? Did you see that? Whether it was on TikTok, Instagram, and then we did a little higher ed. And so we said, we need to do a podcast. We already said, one day we're gonna tell our story. We're gonna do a podcast.
Yeah.
So from 2017 is when we left.
Yes.
We talked about it for 5 years, which is crazy.
Yes.
I put up my notes. It was dated 2022.
Wow.
Yeah. So 5 years this podcast has been in the making. We probably should have just recorded our phone conversations and just let it roll.
And we would say that, like, we should have, this is a podcast. We should have recorded. So
we would have had 5 seasons by now, but we're both in a great place. I'm trying to heal my higher ed. This action podcast is part of me healing from higher ed hurt. And I know people who are listening, we don't talk about this. So this podcast is for you, but it's also to address all of the craziness, traditional craziness that keeps happening, but it's making things worse. So we want to just the institution of higher ed, how things work, who gets the information, who gets the voice, where ideas come from, how our ideas are vetted, different things that really makes me itch. I've been away for so long, like even just we applied to a conference and a conference proposal. I'm like, I was triggered. Like, so all of this is opening up for me. It's like, well, why don't I like this? Like, why are they asking who we are? Just take the idea. If you like it, you like it. Like, what if people didn't have the degrees? They have the experience. Like, there's great people doing great things. There's ideas that could be transformative, but because of the hierarchy and the politics of higher ed, it doesn't happen. And I hate it because the best ideas come from the people who may not have a voice. And so
and the people who are doing the work.
Yeah. And sometimes higher ed, we called it allegedly higher because higher ed does some dumb stuff.
Doesn't it though? Like, doesn't it?
Are you like this choice?
Where is the higher in higher ed sometimes?
No. So that's why we call it allegedly higher. But it's also to speak to what we can do to change that and actually be what we need to be for the future students who are coming through, and talk about things that are not necessarily talked about and give a platform, because we're real hush-hush. We'll brush stuff under the rug. I don't know if anybody, I haven't really heard anybody talk about their experiences because they're so scared that it's gonna
you have to almost change the names to protect the guilty.
Yeah.
Because the pettiness of higher ed is real.
Yeah.
The pettiness, oh my goodness, the pettiness.
And we're not just paranoid, it has happened.
Yeah. I mean, blackballing is real. Just being, the passive aggressiveness of it all. So yeah, this is that space to talk about some of those issues safely.
And so we want to have the lens in the introduction. We talked about a human-centered lens, which we have all this, but the thing that gets me, we have all this great research, and you got to be researched and do this. There's psychology, there's all this great departments and research in higher ed that's right here. The people who are writing these research papers are right here. Sometimes they're practitioners, they get a chance to practice and apply it. But we don't even use it in the way that we could.
No.
And so even in me working in student support and teaching and learning, why isn't education talking to STEM or engineering and science about teaching practices? But they go and they do everything outside. But why are they not talking to exchange it? Why is education not being the professional development place for faculty who don't have the foundation of teaching and learning? Why are we have HR, what is it? HR, there's a degree that's like HR something, human resources, But higher education is the worst place.
In HR management, it is absolute worst. It's
Allegedly. Yeah,
allegedly.
we don't even use our own intellect and apply it, but that's what they expect you to do, and we're just theoretically doing stuff.
And we don't make the collaborative connections because it becomes a sort of dog eat dog kind of world, and everybody wants their own place or to have their own name shine. And what you learn is that my light can still shine even if I push you forward. Yeah. Even collaborating with you doesn't diminish me. So like you said, with like the schools of education at these campuses, they should be connecting. If you're talking about special education, students who want to teach special education and teach those types of classes, who can also work with your ADA office. We're not connecting those dots because everybody wants to have their own star shine bright. It just doesn't always work.
But guess what? What's the most of our missions? We want to graduate critical thinkers and global leaders to lead this next. But the people in the institution can't even think critically and listen to everybody's perspective and blend.
Or the first thing that you get rid of are classes like world literature or your foreign languages, but your missions all say you want them to be globally savvy. But you're getting rid of because you're not sending them all overseas. You're not sending them all to these global environments. That's sometimes the only way they get a chance to kind of explore and make some decisions about what they may want to explore, because we can't pay for it. But you get rid of those courses because you don't see them as necessary, but it's counter to your mission.
Yeah.
So
all those ironies we're laying there. Let's get into what we have prepared. And I'm excited because I know this is going to grow. So the first thing we want to do is our normal chit chat. We're going to show you our real personalities. Yeah. I didn't feel, and we're going to talk about intersectionality. Like, this is not just a HBC or PWI discussion. This is higher ed, but we're going to talk about all the dynamics. But sometimes we can't show our real personalities because everybody has to be so buttoned up. So what I've learned from the nonprofit world that I was like, oh, this feels great, is because for the first time when I got my job, I started my locks. Like, I didn't feel comfortable in any place to start locks, because another discussion about how we show up as African Americans, even in our own HBCUs. But even in that way, but even at a HBCU, I felt like our discussions when I was laughing the other day between my staff, we could switch from looking at YouTube videos of somebody with like a half a centimeter of hair pulled together in a ponytail, from Marvel comics to retention theories and software does not, like, we switched like that, and it was effortless. Like, everybody could be this. They can go, oh, what kind of hair you got?
Right.
We got this meeting about that. Like, it was very, like, that was what I love, because I could be myself fully.
Right.
So our, chit chat, how we're going to talk about what we've been going through, so the listeners can learn who we are. We're going to do, and y'all can give us some examples of the name of the section. I said we outside. We outside. Pop culture, because sometimes higher ed insulates itself from what's going on in the world, and then we trying to figure out why we can't connect the students because we don't bring outside in, and that's the best way for anybody to learn, is to be relevant and to teach from their perspective, meet them where they are. So we'll talk about pop culture, because we are very classy and ratchet, and most of it, so from Housewives of Potomac, most of our shows we not feeling these days, but
Yeah.
we learn our leadership styles from The Wire and Game of Thrones, so you'll get a little bit of that.
Had I watched Game of Thrones before I went to the place, I would have had a better experience. I might have been there.
Did you watch it during it? I think I watched it during it.
Yeah, I didn't, and I binged it once I got back, and I went,
yeah,
oh, that's what I was supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Yep. And so in our news segment, we'll take some stories. Some of our topics will be based on what's going on, of course, in your Inside Higher Ed and Chronicle of Higher Ed, but we make a joke that most people can't afford the Chronicle subscription, nor do they have time to read it. So that is one piece that we want to talk about, just to analyze things that are in that and from perspective, but add our own, because Chronicle of Higher Ed they get that higher up perspective where the work doesn't happen. Ideas do. Mm-hmm. But I think the Chronicle misses the people who are actually frontline with students and seeing the on the ground happenings of higher ed. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about some transitions, big transitions, who's in, who's out. We'll couch that discussion.
No, I mean, because
but
one day you're in, and one day you're out.
Yeah, but some people might want to know that so they can apply. Yeah. We'll talk about policy. We have a segment called Unstudent-Centered News, where things hit the fan and choices are made that have nothing to do with the students. Yes. They make it seem like it has things to do with students, but it does not. And of course, whatever it's called, right? DEI, inclusion, belonging. Some people inclusion and engagement. I don't know. Whatever the thing is called to talk about mixing in of ideas, cultures, races, and ethnicity on equal playing fields. Mm-hmm. Whatever DEI is called. Yeah, whatever it's called. We'll talk about that. Or on DEI news, who knows? And then we'll, of course, have a main segment where we have some great interviews, special topics. And our goal here is to not go to the names that you see all the time. We do want to hear from those people who are disruptors, who are doing great things, but maybe it may not reach the news of your school or institution, or it may not hit an Inside Higher Ed or LinkedIn or diversity in higher ed. But we want to highlight those people who are doing really great work and highlight those ideas who are counterintuitive and disrupts higher ed that people may not have considered, but are targeting some things to break that traditional feel of higher ed. And my favorite will be professional development moments, because we know, again, people who need the professional development, our frontline, our advisors, our financial aid people, student affairs directors, like all of the people who are buried 10 levels down. The money runs out. You don't get the opportunity to go to conferences unless you present. You don't get an opportunity to be in places where you can get other ideas so you can bring to your campus. And so we just keep remixing stale ideas and we get nowhere. So add a little professional development moment. Again, I am a student success background. I have teaching and learning, also science. So I'll bring some of my favorite student-centered teaching, learning things, policy, for people who want to, not even for people. I think everybody should know these things. Dr. Jackson will give you your academic affairs, SACS, COC, policy, faculty affairs pieces that you probably don't know, but maybe need to know, even if you're not in academic affairs. And lastly, we'll have our rants, things that have made us mad through the week. and that,
Then-
I forgot to, well, that's a mix of, if we were president, this is what we'll do. So we'll take a headline and we'll break it down to what would we have done. And
right.
yeah. If anybody asks us, we know y'all not asking us, but who cares?
Yeah.
If you asked us, this is what we would do.
Sounds good.
So please let us know what issues you want to talk about. What things we definitely are going to focus on: burnout and toxicity and leadership in higher ed. We have I think a bird's eye view research for practitioners and men. Like, we have that perspective, and so that unique perspective you'll definitely hear that perspective as we cover topics like presidential searches, toxicity in higher ed, fake diversity in higher education, especially in searches. We've been there, done that.
Work-life balance.
Elitism in HBCUs, college. This must have been your topic you came up with 2 years ago. College boards and broken things.
Definitely mine.
Rethinking student support. We can't have academic student support anymore. It's not even about academics at this point. It's just student support, meeting students where they are and providing even the most basic things is essential to retention and graduation. But for some reason, we have been to this place, not for some reason, we all know higher ed was meant for a certain type of student, and we have not gotten, even HBCUs have gotten to a place where if they need too much, they shouldn't be here, right? If they are food insecurity, housing insecurity, maybe this isn't the right time. Instead of figuring out how do we give them some security, but also teach them how to be resourceful, but also how to make it through.
Right.
So yeah, those are some of the topics. It's accreditation, sham searches in higher ed.
I know that one was mine.
Why do HBCUs have infrastructure problems, generational shift in faculty, the perspective of students of our customers. Let's see. Higher ed administration transitions, the lessons and failures and lessons. And one I just added, AI is only good if students know how to learn. So how do we take advantage of AI, not be behind the curve? We have these conversations all the time.
Right.
I mean, conversation about internet, and now you had to talk about plagiarism. I just
ad nauseum.
Yeah.
But I think add to that list to talk about the benefits of tenure, issues of tenure. And so that's under assault at any given time. Legislative interference sometimes.
Academic freedom.
Yeah.
Use
and
that.
what it really is.
Yeah.
What it really is. So as opposed to these notions of what some institutions think it means.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into the history of Black medical schools and how that affects how African American, especially women, are getting the low end of the totem pole when it comes to treatment.
Yeah,
like that's an intersection that people don't realize. And higher ed between higher ed and the government sits right in the middle of it. And we don't realize how we vote and who we put into office, especially governors, have a lot to do with our state institutions and how it affects outcomes that we don't even think about. So I definitely want to do the medical, because I just read an article, I don't even know why, again, can't step away, about the history. That it was the article about there were so many Black medical schools and so many Black medical doctors that once I think it was a government policy that capped the number of doctors, that it made it it made all the Black medical schools fold. And now they're talking about taking away the DEI policies for medical education that the government controls, not the schools. So I want to get into that.
We definitely need to do a deep dive on that.
To it, yeah. Well, this is probably going to be the longest episode we have. Let us know. We'll leave the email or where you can contact us in the show notes. We want to hear from you. We want to hear about the topics that you want to hear. We want to hear what you think about the topics that we're going to explore. We want to build a community, and also look out for Allegedly Higher, the newsletter, which will bring some of the same things, but are just in a different way. Hopefully it'll be a bright spot in your week, that you get something in your inbox that doesn't make you scream. Hopefully it doesn't get buried, but well, thank you so much for joining us at Allegedly Higher, the first episode, many more to come. Catch you later.
Thanks for listening. This episode was sponsored by Holistic Higher Ed Solutions, committed to enhancing student success. From coaching to planning, our practitioners empower institutions. Ready to transform? Visit holisticheredsolutions.com and let's revolutionize higher ed together. Be sure to subscribe, review, and join us next time.